Hello, Internet.
Hello, if we are live. Let's see. Live recording.
It's always funny. The start of the live recordings are always people like squinting at their
I
computer.
know, like, are we live? Are we live? Okay,
Yeah.
we're live. Good. Awesome. Sweet. What is going on, guys? It's been a very long time since we've done a live. We're back for another website roast Wednesdays. And Mike is joining me today. We're going to be diving into a few different websites we've got. In fact, I'm not even going to tell you guys what we've got today because I want to keep this like really open. And for anyone watching as well, for anyone joining the live stream, we'd love for you to join in and participate. So if there's any suggestions that you have or any thoughts you have as we're going through these websites, do drop them in the comments. And as you guys are joining, if you do want us to cover your website live, or if you're watching this on the replay, just drop your URL in the comments of the live stream below, and we'll do our best to either cover it on this one or we'll cover it in the next event, which we should be back next week doing. So we'll schedule in another event for then. Cool. So let's get straight into the first website. So, Mike, I want to hear your thoughts on this one, your first impressions. What do you
Okay,
think?
first impressions. One thing I look for is just being able to read things easily. So obviously having this gray on the background, it makes it a little harder to read for me. Um, Also having the banner, generally you'll see like a different color on the banner ad with the menu than
Oh, the
other
menu
things,
section,
just
yeah.
to show a distinct difference. Interpreting services should make sense.
Do you know what it is?
Added without added costs, transactional agencies. No, I don't know what these guys do.
I get this is the thing, right? When I first saw this, I was thinking, hang on, like the amount of time it took me to just understand what is this. And you would think, like, actually when I read it back, like interpreting services, the clue's there, right? So okay, it's interpreting services, but then it says
Yeah.
interpreting services should make sense. It's like they're trying to be smart, they're trying to be clever, I think, with the headline, but it's almost like too much. You're kind of like, what does that mean? Interpreting services should make sense. So what are you actually offering? Are you offering interpreting services? Are you helping interpreting services to market themselves? Like, what is the actual offering?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they're trying to be kind of smart and saying we've reimagined it. It's kind of like saying, hey, we're disrupting the interpreting services industry.
Yeah.
After reading through the site, I think that's what they're trying to get at here. But I think this is a perfect example where trying to be too smart with your copy can sometimes backfire because you're asking too much like cognitive bandwidth of someone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a little bit ironic too when it says should make sense, but it can't
Yeah.
really
But
make
it
sense
can't
of it.
make sense of the headline.
And if they've
Exactly.
reimagined it, like they have a differentiating feature of their product compared to other people's, like rather than just saying we're different, we're boutique, it's like what is different about you, right?
Yeah.
Like I would love to know that immediately. Cause like you see on the heat maps, like people don't scroll past this sometimes. They'll just get here and leave. So unless you tell them what it is, which it doesn't look like they've actually said anything other than new generation of clients and boutique, that they're a boutique provider, which are just buzzwords. It's not an actual feature.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So let's scroll down. We're locals everywhere.
Right.
But it's not getting much clearer to me. We
We'll
move
move
with
with you
you.
and your
We've got
colleagues
colleagues
everywhere.
everywhere. The colleagues in our vast network. It's too. It feels too assumptive. Like I even know who you are. Like this is all nice, but like at this stage, I'm still trying to figure out what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess this is one thing that where it's like industry knowledge might make sense, because this might be like the value prop where it's like their current services that most people have
Mm.
are limited geographically. So when they say interpreting, just so I understand the scope, because I'm sure people who land on this website will actually kind of know what they're doing. Is interpreting as in like a translator?
I think it's a translator. Yeah, I mean, if we so because I saw this section, right? So you've got remote
Oh
interpreting.
yeah,
So I don't know if there's like sign language things. Maybe there's also different languages like translations. Like I think it's a different range of interpreting services. Like you see here, right? Document translation, localization, live interpreting at events. So I think it's a whole range of services. But it's only this is the problem, right? It's only on this third or fourth scroll, I'm now starting to see, oh, okay, now I see what you do. You
yeah,
as you said earlier, like if like most of the heat maps we see on websites, like on the hundreds of websites we've looked at over the past few years, you're going to have lost 50% at least of your visitors before they've even got here.
totally. Yeah, and something that I think about when I see all of those is that they basically do like full scope dictation, I guess is the
Mm,
keyword for businesses, but they haven't like highlighted that at the top. This is them
mm,
segmenting each little bit. But if they, because that's a big deal, it's either they're specialized or they're able to like help your company make sure that they have dictation.
yeah.
Um, but I haven't, just because you say you think of things differently and that you're remote, those aren't really differentiating things. Because here, I don't see anything that's different than what someone else would offer, maybe who's
Mm,
been in the industry for longer.
yeah, yeah, it's a good
That's
point.
my initial thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's a really good point. I just think the biggest problem is like I feel like yeah, there's too much in this pursuit of like you say trying to differentiate. You've just convoluted me understanding what you actually do, and I think there is something to be said here for like it's all context, right? And
Yeah.
what I often see is like for a lot of businesses, depending what stage they're at, like sometimes you see businesses maybe they're at 1 or 2 million in revenue and they've grown purely on outbound. And the nice thing about outbound is you are kind of giving people context before they come onto your website. So you've said,
Hmm.
hey, we offer these services. Come check out our website and book a call with us. So when I've landed on here, I already know, I've got the context. I know what you're offering. And
Yeah.
now I can see, okay, interesting. They've reimagined. I know what you do. It all makes sense. But then these businesses are often like, okay, we now want to add another acquisition channel, right? We want to go organic. We want to find a more cold audience and do inbound marketing. Okay,
Yeah.
now we need to completely rethink about this website then.
Yeah.
Because if we're now going after cold traffic and getting people who don't know about Flamingo, this is going to be tricky to understand.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe even it makes sense to and if you still want to continue your outbound campaigns, even having dedicated landing pages, specifically for outbound and specifically for paid media and things like that can actually be useful because you can even personalize those touch points.
Yeah. 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 I love the way you're thinking about that, because it makes such a big difference. Because I mean, I've done some reviews for companies who have a long history and like high revenue, but their website is very, very primitive. But because they have such an established
Mm,
network, it's like it really just acts as like the way for someone to submit a quote or say they're interested. So it
yeah,
does matter a lot what's on the other side of this.
yeah,
Um, just like when we make ads, right? If you have like a 3-tier ad system where it's like learn about the business, you show the testimonies, and then the value offer, we don't know where they're putting people on this. One thing that you kind of harp on a lot, and I totally agree with, is getting the social proof like higher up
I was
in the
just thinking that.
scroll. Like one thing I saw that was really small on this was they said they work with 26 different streamers. It's like
Where did you see that?
immediately
I didn't
if
even
they
see that.
had, if you scroll up, I think it's expert services right there. If you go down, like their little emoji, yeah, 26 streamers and
Yeah,
networks.
yeah. Yeah.
and houses won't work with anyone else. Like that's a social proof. I mean, you harp on this a lot, but I think it's
Yeah.
important because you can say a lot about yourself, but the second someone else, there's a reason why you go on Amazon. You're like, what are the reviews? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously they can say whatever they want about their best product, but
That's a really good point. I mean, there's always, sometimes I know that sometimes there are clients that don't like their logos being used and things like that. Some are more sensitive than others, so maybe there's a reason they haven't done this. But yeah, that's a really good point. If there is like big production houses, that people would know and recognize, flipping out, like just having like trusted by and just having a little logo carousel that like sometimes just that, even if I've been confused by this and I see trusted by, I don't know, Netflix, Hulu,
yeah,
whatever, I'm
yeah,
like, well, whatever they're offering, it must be pretty good, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
that in itself, like if anything, it can at least keep someone on the page. And actually just to build on that as well, because coming onto this review section, this is something I always say to people in there, like above the fold, it's such a quick win. Just taking a tiny little quote, not the full testimonial, a tiny little quote snippet, like 1 or 2 lines out of one of your really good testimonials, and just putting that as a little quote. So
Yeah,
um, I mean, this one might be difficult because then you might be kind of ruling out other types of interpretation. But
yeah,
like Gray was an outstanding interpreter for our deaf guest event. Um, there might be better ones. Thoroughly, absolute pleasure to work with. Highly recommend. But yeah, I mean, even this, right? Highly recommend anyone looking for interpreting services, and just have a little picture of them, a little 5-star icon, instant social proof, and it says, okay, interpreting services. Even though it
yeah.
says it here, it's just kind of again affirming, like providing that clarity when it otherwise might be confusing.
Yeah, and I actually went through this process on one of our stores, helping pick the copy that we're going to use that's shown from the testimonies.
Mm.
And I think what you said there is important, where you were saying this is a piece that might only address the problems of one of these services. So when you have a broad scope company like this, like deaf interpreters, or are they looking for like captions on their videos? Those are so different. So I think that's where maybe spending the resources to get a separate landing page, and then you can just plug in, like, as if they're doing deaf interpretation, people know their company, their industry better than me, but it'd be like, people need reliable staff, people need experienced people, whatever the pain point is for that specific customer. If you can highlight that and place it as the social proof, because it's people leave reviews and they're like, on Tuesday I ordered this and they left it at my side door. It's just like they put in a bunch of information that doesn't help convert the new customer, like
Yeah,
sell it. So you got to be careful what you
yeah,
place in those boxes.
that's very true.
Yeah,
That's very true. This is a really good, I mean, this section here, this is a perfect example again of what you were saying about that credibility, right? 30
yeah,
plus cities, 168 interpreters, 26 studios and production partners. Just put this up higher.
so
Like
low.
most people aren't going to get down here, and this is such a shame as well. I always, when you see some absolutely golden like credibility and social proof right at the bottom of the flipping websites, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh no, nobody is seeing this. It's such a shame. And look, there is something to be said for the structure, because and I agree with this. Like a lot of people will say, well, you want the first part of your website should be about conveying what you do. That is correct, right? So you don't want to take up like lots of scrolls from people having to do that, but this is where like just formatting it correctly. So again, with those logos, just needs a tiny little thing like this, right? Small little banner. It doesn't have to take up a whole big section. And even with this is like, you've made this like a whole section right now. I
yeah,
wouldn't recommend doing, like, if you were to put this higher above the fold, if these guys are watching, I would just, again, you can have some logos here, trusted by, and then just underneath it, another tiny little section. So it's all then within that first scroll, right? So that I
yeah.
land on here and I'm like, cool. These guys seem like a legit interpreting services company. Let me read on.
Yeah.
And that's going to significantly reduce the drop-off rate on this page, which is going to be key.
Yeah, I totally agree. Getting that higher up and maybe taking less space. And yeah, I think this is just a formatting situation.
Mm.
Um, yeah. I mean, from people I've talked to about the website thing, sometimes they just believe that once they're on their page, they're just going to read through the whole thing. So
Yep.
it's like if I just tick all the boxes on my way down, then sweet, I have the social proof, I have what I offer, yada yada. But they don't realize that people like, and looking at the heat maps, you'd know this, they just drop off so significantly. And it
Mm.
is tough because the social proof is just, it's something that your competitors can't do. Like someone can remake this website, but the fact that you work with 26 streamers actively is what differentiates you from whoever just started a dictation business and is freelancing out on Fiverr right now. Right. It's
Yep.
like that can be the thing that makes it different. And the fact you've been in the business for X amount of years, you work in this many countries, like all of those are things that establish you as a reputable company.
Mm.
And that's what's going to keep people engaged and like knowing you're a professional. Because it looks like this is a professional business that's been running for a while and they
Yeah.
have good systems. So if I actually needed one of these services, maybe I would want that. But my initial reaction, the first little bit, is just like, oh, these people just threw together a little website. It
Mm.
is tough
Mm.
when you see great content or like an amazing tactic. Sometimes, even, I mean, one of our clients did this recently. It was on like one of the tabs, 3/4 of the way down. It was an awesome video that was just like
Mm.
of their whole warehouse, like everything. It was professionally shot. And I was like, this is buried. Like I was
Yeah.
digging into your website and it took me 20 minutes to find this video. So
Mm.
it's nice to get those high value stuff higher up on the first page.
Definitely, definitely, and that's where again it comes down to the context, right?
Yeah.
It's all about like it's a really tricky thing. It's kind of like when you've and I just it's such a common thing where businesses have grown very successfully through referrals, through outbound. They've had a lot of success with it. So then they think, well, cool. Inbound should be easy, right? Let's just get an agency to boost our SEO or to run paid ads and we'll be all good.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we need to to use your words, like reimagine this entire website and this entire user journey because the context has now changed. People don't have as much information.
Mm-hmm.
Referrals are always going to convert higher. One thing I have noticed, which I am happy that they've got in place because a lot of businesses miss this, it looks like they have individual links and pages for their specific services, which is
Nice.
great. This is something I do because it's very, very common with businesses that offer multiple services. They'll just have like, their about page or their homepage. It's like, look at all the services we offer. It's such a missed opportunity from an SEO perspective because
Yeah.
Google, I mean, and this is a way to think about it. Like people overcomplicate SEO, right? The easiest way to think about this is Google want to give the best experience to the user. So if they've got a choice of, let's say, for example, you guys just had like all you were just interpreting services, you didn't have these pages, but you had remote interpreting services listed as a block or a bullet point. That's a really horrible user experience for someone looking for remote interpreting because they've now got to scroll your whole website to find a section relevant to them. Whereas
Yeah.
if Google have got the choice of ranking a dedicated page for that specific service, they're
Yeah.
always going to choose that. So you
Yeah.
always just want to think about like, how can we just make this easier for people to find? So very quick win for a lot of businesses. If you are offering multiple services or even serving multiple segments, you might have seen this on other websites, right? With like who we help pages and different segments of your audience. So if
Yeah.
somebody is likely to type into Google, interpreting services for, and maybe this is because I'm not seeing this for these guys actually, but interpreting services for streaming companies.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
something people are looking for, right?
Yeah, totally. I think it lends well to just like a basic business principle where it's like the niching down makes it easier, but it's just separating the exact service from it. The way I think about SEO is kind of like a race, and
Mm.
there's a lot of people in the race for interpreting services, like tons and tons. But then you go down a layer, and now you're into whatever it was, remote. What is this page again? Remote.
Remote interpreting services.
Right. So now you're competing with a lot less people, right? So the competition is lower, and then so on and so forth. As you said, if you're doing remote interpretation for streamers on YouTube, it's like there's going to be a lot less people you're competing for in that, right? There's probably behemoths in this industry that have, huge marketing teams that are fighting really hard to get those higher search count keywords, but you don't have to get everyone. You just have to get people. So yeah, and that's something I've seen you advise people on, and it makes a lot of sense where it's like, what industries do you serve and what services specifically do you offer?
Yeah.
And you can kind of use copy, not word for word, but you can use copy from that main page. You already have a little blurb on remote dictations. You just pull that over and expand on it a little bit, and now you have a fully separate page here.
Yeah, actually, I'd be quite interested to see. Don't usually do this on website race, but this might be quite interesting to actually have a look and see if they are ranking for any of these.
For the keywords.
Share, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's share SE ranking and have a look.
Yeah, I guess while you're looking it up, it's important to say like SEO is a strategy. It's one distribution channel. So kind of context, like you were saying, if they're not putting any resources into that and they're just hitting socials really hard or paid really hard or whatever they're choosing to, I think it's important to not spread yourself so thin. Yeah. So 5.
Definitely.
I always like to try and explain the numbers for.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it is worth saying because, like, total traffic 5, that doesn't mean they're only getting 5 visits a month. Is any people often get this confused with SEO tools. Whenever you use any SEO tool, whether it be SEMrush, Ahrefs, SE ranking, whatever you're using, the traffic number they give you is an estimate. A lot of the time, the traffic the website is getting is more. And the way they do it is they all have different algorithms. So every tool is going to give you a different number as well. But they are taking an estimate of, let's say, for example, if a website has 5 keywords in positions 1 to 3 that get an average 30 searches a month, they will say, okay, well, positions 1 to 3 generally get 10% of all of those clicks. And they're doing a calculation to work out that estimate. So it doesn't mean they're only getting that. But we can see here from the keywords that they're actually ranking for. Let's have a look. So this is it looks like they got most of their keywords in the US. So I'm assuming that's probably where they're based, where they're targeting. So language interpretation services, Penn's Park. Okay, cool. So that's a good one. That seems like a localized one, maybe. Interpret.com. American Sign Language classes in Miami. That's random.
What is it, from a blog post?
Yeah, I'm just having a look. Oh, yeah, it looks like that's a blog post. Yeah. So, I mean, it looks like the keywords they are ranking for probably aren't really the ones they want to rank for, right?
Well, yeah, but that being said, like that's a great example of like if they were running American Sign Language classes in Miami, the fact that they've made a blog post about it, even if there's 10 people searching, if that's $1,000 event, now they have those people there, right? So that's a good example of like when you have a very specific page for exactly what you offer, you might be able to capture, even if it's a small amount of people. And then you're not competing because how many people are running sign language classes in Miami, right? So you want to make sure that people looking find you.
Definitely. So let's so we won't have time to obviously go through all the pages on here, but let's have a look at the kind of arguably the money page on this website, right? The get a quote or is this the same page? Request form, get in touch. Yeah, request form. So this will go through to the same page. Oh, flipping out. Okay. So
it's a lot.
This needs some work. What I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this, just as first impressions. Even before I scrolled there, I kind of gave the game away. But like, just landing on this page, what would you say about this one?
Yeah, I mean, we have a client who just recently we kind of helped with this exact process. So you kind of have a trade-off here when you add more information into a form like this. So you're adding way more friction the more questions you have. So you just, basic logic. If 100 people come here and they only have to answer one question, or they only have to place their email in, then it's likely that more people will submit. And then the more additional information you add, you'll usually get drop off. There is a bell curve probably, because you don't want to seem like just an email seems like, are these people even legit? But in general, the more you add, the more friction there is to this process. You'll get less submissions. But like for the client that we're dealing with, they were getting so many submissions. It's like, okay, we actually want to make sure that we have more qualified submissions and we know more about them before they get here. So this is probably like every submission they get, they probably know a lot about the client and they're a really qualified lead. But there's probably qualified leads who are ready to hand the money, who don't want to fill in all of these things.
100%.
And they're losing money because of that. So that's the trade-off.
100%. And it's finding that sweet spot, right? That middle ground of like, how can we make sure we're qualifying, but not over qualifying and asking too much. So there's always, it's like you say, it's a bell curve, right? There's always going to be a sweet spot of like, okay, we've got the right amount of questions, but we're not scaring people away. Because naturally, if someone's having to book these services, like let's say I'm running a live event, I'm going to be flipping busy, right? Putting on a live event and scheduling this whole event. If I come on this website, I'm just going to think, oh, flipping out, I'll do it later, right? They're then going to click off your website. They're then going to go back on Google later, type in interpreting services. Like we just saw, you guys aren't showing for that. So they're probably going to stumble across one of your competitors and end up going with them. That's the reality of what happens every single day. So it really is important that you really want to be testing these things. And another thing you can do on here, just on your point, Mike, of like the friction, we've done a number of A/B tests now on website with forms. And one of the things we have seen what can help is actually, even if you ask exactly the same amount of questions in a form, just changing this whole stacked form, as you might call it, to a multi-step form, what that does is it reduces the perceived effort. So even if you're asking exactly the same amount of questions, I don't then look at this and say, oh, flipping hell, and then click off. All that happens, right, is it says, hey, what's your name? Tom. And you've probably seen this. If you go on typeform.com, this is what Typeform do. If you're not familiar with Typeform, perfect example where it just sequentially asks you questions in a very conversational style. So it'll say, hey, what's your name? You put in Tom. It'll say, nice to meet you, Tom. What kind of services are you looking for today? Interpreting. It makes it very interactive, very personalized. You will see significant conversion increases just from doing that alone. The other thing I think is a problem on here as well is like, it might sound obvious if someone's clicked get a quote, but like it just says request. Like give me and it feels like they're not trying. But again, I do think this is just this is what happens again when businesses have, they get a lot of referrals, they've been established for a long time and they're not used to setting up an inbound funnel. You have to make a case for a cold audience who are going to see loads of your competitors. You're not the only flipping option because you're no longer a referral now. People have got multiple tabs open on their browser. This is how, buyers are actually going to be. If I'm organizing an event and I'm going cold and I'm looking for interpreting services, I've got multiple tabs open on my browser. Don't think I'm spoiled for choice. You want to show me why I should deal with you guys. And something I always say to service businesses that you want to think about when it's like when you're doing something like book a call, even for SaaS, if you're doing book a demo, one of the things I always say is like, think about how you can position this in the customer's interest, whether or not they decide to work with you. Because naturally in any service business, there is going to be an element of consultative selling. So from that call, you probably will have given that customer more clarity, at least, even if you don't work with them, from when they came on that call. So it's just positioning it, changing how you position this call in that way can make it much more compelling to somebody actually wanting to contact you. If you think, if it just says like book a call with us and we'll
Yeah.
tell you all about our amazing products, versus, hey, book a call and we'll help you plan your perfect event, your perfect interpretations for your events or something, and it kind of moves them forward to that end goal that
Yeah.
they have in mind, right?
Yeah, I love that way of thinking towards it. And also that's one kind of reason the questions can be helpful and why it's more of a bell curve than a one submission. Because if you're asking questions about exactly what they having issues with, right? Then it's like, oh, this person wants to help me with exactly what I'm doing.
That's a great
So
point. Yeah.
like setting it up, like when we have submissions to Elevate, one of the questions is what's your biggest bottleneck in marketing? And I try and address that on that initial review so that I know, as you said, like whether they purchase from you or not, it's like we are helping them with an issue immediately. Like that's the first thing that we do for them. And I'm sure these people can as well. Because if someone's here and they're an event planner and they need someone dictating, it's like, let's talk about your options for dictation at your event. And that might mean that and we've done this where there's actually different submission pages for different services, right? And it doesn't take, kind of like the copy from homepage to whatever, it doesn't take that much to make a new one.
Yep.
Or just a little bit of a different thing. But I think you're right on the perceived, even if you have 10 questions, the way you format those 10 questions so that it doesn't feel like just this, where it's just a simple type form. And context is important. Like if I got referred from a friend, these are awesome dictation people, I don't even care how this is formatted.
Exactly.
I'll press all the buttons. Yeah. But this is a question of like, if you're getting more middle of funnel, like cold audience, this is part of the sales phase, right? They're not handing over money yet. This is like, you're still nurturing them into that relationship.
They're weighing you up, right? They're weighing you up against the competitors. They're like, shall I deal with these guys? Shall I not? And nobody likes to, the perception of filling in a form on like a B2B website is always, oh, here we go, I'm going to get a flipping salesperson calling me and they're going to pitch me this. It's always an icky, even if I'm at a very high level of intent, you really have to be sure. So yeah, no, it's a great point. And actually, I just want to mention, I'm glad you mentioned that about our review thing, because one of the changes, so I think a year or two ago now, we actually had like a really simple, like 4-question review application form. We now have about 10, 11 questions on there. The conversion rate actually increased. And this goes to a point, Mike, about that bell curve. And I think, and it's exactly what you said, in that people feel like it's almost like we're giving them a diagnosis. It's like when you go into like a doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, where does it hurt? How long has it been going on? You feel understood. You feel like, oh, these people actually want to get to know me. Whereas if you just say name, email, website, phone number, it just reeks of like a flipping money grab, email grab. You know?
Yeah. It's also like, what's the next step here? Like the good thing about the questions we ask is, when I get a submission on my side, I'll be like, oh, that's their bottleneck. They're having trouble with SEO or they're having trouble with paid ads. And then I can quickly like scan through everything so that when we have the conversation with the client, like we already kind of know where each other stand here. If you offer 20 different services and I actually don't know. I can't scroll through this, but maybe you can pick which service they're interested in on their request page. Like that's a helpful thing that I'm sure people would want to be asked. But here, see date of event, start time. So this is also, maybe they have different CTA page or request pages, but they said they also offer captioning on videos and stuff like that. So some of these questions are actually not applicable to some of the services they offer. So I worry about that being, it's the opposite of what you're saying. It's like, oh, these people are asking questions about issues that I don't even have an event. I'm a streamer, right? You have 26 streamers. Like maybe they don't have set events. They just want someone on the back end. So it's tough to pull this apart too hard without knowing the context of their ideal client. But
yeah, for sure.
I think
sure.
we hit on the principles that are important here.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So we've actually spent quite a lot of time on that one. So I think we'll probably have time to cover one more because I've actually got one that's pretty much just looks like a single page landing page. So I'm going to pull that one up. I haven't actually even seen this one properly yet, so this will be a good one.
Nice.
Fresh set of eyes to see. So let's have a look. Okay, looks like it's a stock analysis platform.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, cool. First impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I like that there's colors. I like
Mm,
that it seems to flow nicely into whatever's next. Like I don't see
mm,
that distinct line, which can be good. No credit card required, instant access. Sweet. Those are that's one thing I'm very worried about whenever I land on a page like this. I'm like, when are they going to ask me for my credit
mm,
card?
mm.
Um, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think they're doing a lot of good stuff here. I like the use of color to highlight the key bits of information they want to convey to the customer quickly. It's quite a smart way of using color. If there's like any bits you want to really kind of, because people skim pages all the time, right? So using color can just help to convey the important part. So I mean, it's not a massive differentiator, but obviously they think the fact that it's modern. I don't know. Again, this is where when we're looking at copy, it's very subjective because it all depends who your target audience is, right? You know
Yeah.
your audience best. So if maybe your audience is used to using like old dated stock analysis platforms and the word modern is going to be like, oh, thank God, finally, that's a really smart use of the color to say, hey, your modern stock analysis, but it's like your differentiator stock analysis platform. And then here they've kind of got almost, I'm guessing, another differentiator. We provide high quality Wall Street data. Maybe that's a differentiator for them to retail traders. So who's it for? So they're actually doing a lot here. It's kind of like, what is this? It's a modern stock analysis platform. What makes us different? We're providing high quality Wall Street data to retail traders. So this is actually a really good, in my opinion, like copy, grabs attention very quickly. It says who it's for, why it's different. You know, it's differentiated. They've differentiated themselves, and then they have a very, very. I mean, this is obviously like a SaaS platform of some sort, right? So they got a very compelling CTA here. Start free 7-day trial, and like you say, no credit card required, instant access. So they've removed the friction and that barrier to entry. So, and even then, they've got social proof up here as well.
Yeah.
Like, so this is ticking a lot of boxes for me right now. This is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently, this is kind of anecdotal, but I recently was looking for like time software to kind of track and plan my day, and that was the one thing that I did. I basically went to all the biggest ones, and then I just signed up for their like free plan to play around with it. And I think when it's something like this that's just included in your workflow, the product is the sales thing. So getting them into using the product as quickly as possible with that one click, no credit card, instant access is great because it's not different than the last service we have where there's a lot of questions and planning involved before you actually get the delivery.
Mm.
You can just there's if you add a paywall or like a lot of friction into them trying out the product, like I just go to the next guy and try out his product and see how it works with me because it doesn't
Yeah.
take long to test the analysis software, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, just another tip here, like for anyone in this kind of space, if you're, you know, if you have a software product, um, or even if you're just doing something similar to this, there's a another client we've got actually who, because sometimes one of the concerns around like free trials can be churn. Like you just
Yeah.
get people just signing up to just abuse a free trial and then they will churn and then it can become difficult to grow. And you know, you can end up with loads of support queries and things on time wasters and it operationally very expensive, but then everyone's just churning on the back end.
Yeah.
And then there's then a question for, well, is your targeting off? Are you driving the wrong kind of traffic, or
Mhm.
do you actually just have a crap product? Let's assume that you don't, right? You've got the right people, and you know
Yeah.
you've got a good product or whatever, but it's just operationally expensive. One of the other things you can do to kind of mitigate that risk is to have a low cost trial. So like what this this other client we've got does, they actually have like I think it's like $99 a month or $199 a month for the actual service. But what they do is they offer like a $7 7-day trial, right? Which is, I
Right.
think Ahrefs actually did this as well. It's a really smart way of kind of saying like, hey, you can get it if you're serious. Like, we're happy to let you, we want you to try it out, but you've got to put some skin in the game as well, right?
Yeah.
And it shows a higher level of intent. So something to think about that I think can be quite a powerful mechanism, because particularly if you're running paid traffic, it at least allows you to absorb some of that initial acquisition cost, right?
Yeah.
For the customers you're getting in.
Yeah, those are all good insights. The operational costs on the free trials can't be just slept away with. You can't just open the door to everyone and expect, no operational costs to come with that. And it also depends, I guess, on your sales team and like how that process flows around that. So thanks for including that.
Yeah. So I like that they've got this image as well. I think this is good. This is always, especially with any kind of, well, same with physical products as well, but whenever you're selling any kind of SaaS solution, software product, having product screenshots is so important, because people need to be able to see and understand like what how it works. And actually, just one thing I will say on this, because I've actually seen this a lot with SaaS companies, where there's typically two things that happen. This is actually, it looks like a very kind of nice designed, nice UI. It's actually fairly easy to look at this, and I can see how cool they're looking at an Apple stock. It's very visual. It's colorful. It's clear and easy to understand. You sometimes see software products where maybe like they have like this small screenshot of the product on a laptop, and they just have this big report open and loads of tiny little numbers and stuff. That's not helpful. Because I'm looking at that, I'm seeing that, and it's like, it actually just looks scary and daunting. So it has the opposite effect. So if you don't have a particularly, sexy UI or whatever, what you can do is, if you look at like Stripe, for example, right, the payment processor, if you go on stripe.com and scroll down their page and look at how they showcase their features, like their checkout, what they do is they'll just take out little parts of their screen and show those as for like relevant sections. So they'll say like, analyze stocks, monitor company info. So they'll break them out into individual feature shots and then show like, what is this feature doing, as opposed to just dumping this dashboard where people are like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. I'm also curious. Well, confused buyers don't buy is what I always think about when I see that information overload. I'm curious what this would look like on a mobile device too, when I see that much. Yeah. I'm just going to run to the washroom quick, but feel free to keep chipping away.
Yeah. So what else have we got? AI powered algorithms to assist you in any way. Market trends, price movements, new sentiment. So I think so far this is looking really, really good. Real-time options flow. I mean, this is a perfect example here, actually. So they've got different kind of parts, different sections of their tool, and they're showcasing that here. But again, the thing you want to be careful with, like these guys, and they've actually faded this out at the bottom, and it's probably for that very reason, or maybe it was just accidental, but this is actually quite a smart move, because it then doesn't make it so daunting for me to look at and be like, what am I looking at here? What's actually going on? Whereas I can just see at a glance, and I don't really understand all these tools, right? So I will just say that as long as this makes sense for your audience, like if the main thing is they can read real-time options flow and they can see this and say, within a couple of seconds, they see the headline and they see the screenshot, and within a couple of seconds, they should be able to say, that's awesome. That's exactly what I need. Instead of them having to squint their eyes and look at it and figure out, okay, what's going on here then? So there seems to be a button there and a chart there, and that is the opposite of what you want. That's going to kill conversion. So if you are in this space, even if you're selling physical products, or you using any images on your website, you really have to think very carefully about not making people have to figure things out. One other thing, actually, I do just want to mention here that I've just noticed, which is quite interesting. So you've got this sticky login button here, but there's no sticky sign up button, which I find curious. I mean, kind of says to me that I don't know, maybe you're not that interested in acquiring new customers. I'm not really sure why you wouldn't have just a kind of secondary, start your free trial, right? I love that this is a simple landing page, but where's the harm in having two buttons? Just having a start your seven, like for new customers, start trial. For existing customers, log in. Just keep it super simple. Because right now, like there's only two mentions of that button. So if I've got down here, let's say I've decided at this stage to sign up. I'm now thinking, I come up here and I see login, and then I'm thinking, well, how do I sign up? And then I scroll. I still can't see how to sign up. Still can't see how to sign up. And then I see this open source, and it takes me to a GitHub page. So now I'm just confused, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know, like, have I got to install this myself? Like, how does this work? There's the button. People might have missed that, if they're not going to get down that far. So yeah, I don't know why we don't just have a button up there. That would make much more sense. But otherwise, I think this is really good. I think this is really strong. I mean, it's missing testimonials. I like that. I mean, it's good that you've got this. This is a bit of social proof, but it would definitely do some more contextual testimonials. I think from, if you've got 1,000+ users, I'm sure you've had some, hopefully, unless it's absolutely terrible, you've had some positive feedback to say, oh, I love, because quality of data seems to be a big thing. Again, whatever your USP is, whatever you think is your differentiator, if you can get testimonials from your customers talking about that thing, makes everything far more believable, right? If it is the Wall Street data that makes you guys unique, let's get some, even if you message some of your users and just say like, hey, like, how are you finding the data? Just get some emails in from customers. Someone's going to email back and say, oh, it's amazing. It's one of the best platforms I've used so far for data. Amazing. Quote that, stick it on the website. Boom, done. That in itself, you can have that right under here. You can have some other ones littered throughout the page to kind of build that momentum. Best platform I've used, amazing quality data. This is the only stock analysis tool I use now. That is going to make me way more likely to sign up.
Yeah, the testimonies. I'm sure this is a saturated market, right? I mean, data visualization is like a big thing. And then also, there's no lack of programmers who like stocks. So I'm sure you got a lot of websites out there.
That's very true.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot. They're taking a lot of boxes. It's not too much overwhelm. The coloring is great. And, it seems like they have 1,000 people. So if they are developing it actively alongside their users, that's a huge win, 100%. Right? It's not like a prepackaged product. This seems more like more intimate than some products for sure.
100%. This is quite a nice sign up page as well. Not too much information. Create an account, 7-day free trial.
Nice.
Log in using Google, Discord. What is that? GitHub. Yeah. I mean, we could do with like again, on this page, like some reviews as well. This is one of the things, like with application pages, get a quote, book a call, sign up, check out in e-commerce, like the pages where it matters. Whenever you're asking for someone's detail, whether it be their credit card or just their email address, testimonials will always help, because that's where it's getting real for someone. This is I call it pre-buyer's remorse, right? It's where pre-buyer's remorse kicks in, and they're thinking, do I really want to give my email and get bombarded by a salesperson? Do I really want to book this call? Do I really want to pay 300 quid for this massage gun that I don't need? Like, whatever it is you're selling, or whatever, you know, even if it's a consultation, like you just want to think about on that page, that's where it matters. Like, how can we just build up, even if you've got reviews on the homepage, when people have now got to the next step, that's where they're going to be questioning themselves. So reaffirming that is always just going to help to assure them they've made the right decision. This is proved by, you know, average abandoned cart rates on ecom as of last year. This is like crazy. It varies by industry, but they were around 70%. A lot of people are like shocked to hear that, but when you think about that, 70% of people, they've added something to their basket, they've gone to the checkout, and then they've dropped off.
Yeah.
70. But that, it's so real. It's so, because people get there and they're like, oh, I've got to get my wallet, I've got to put my credit card, and they're now talking themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And exactly the same in other industries. Do not think this isn't happening to you, because it is.
Yeah, I imagine in SaaS, like, especially like I said, you think about the customer persona of who is trading stocks using stock analysis platforms. Like, it's very different than it was whatever 20 years ago. It's not like a guy in a suit. It's someone like I mean, I'm next to a big university, and it's one of the biggest tech universities in Canada. And in their computer labs, there's people trading stocks all the time and talking about it. Like, they need to see some compelling proof. And I think that's where, like, having the Discord, I see this company even has a subreddit, like, they're one of them and they see them. It's like, that's the big thing. But on that last page, I mean, you could make the argument that they've nurtured them to the point where they don't need to upsell anymore. But even just having something a bit more than that 1,000, because if you actually have 1,000 active users, like, when I'm using kind of a primitive product, like 1,000 is a lot, but it's not, you know, it's not like a HubSpot or, you know, Google. So the fact you have 1,000 people that you're actively interacting with, just that little reminder, it's like, hey man, you're joining a community of people who are also using this product to make money.
Yeah.
Like, that was sweet. It's not just like me signing up for like Jim's little garage software service, and then eventually he's gonna like nail me with 1,000 emails to upsell me. Because you're not gonna get past the tech people with that, for sure.
100%. That's actually a really good point. You know, like knowing your, you know, who was it? I think it was Eugene Schwartz that coined the whole kind of buyer sophistication thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, sometimes, you know, that doesn't mean like how smart your audience are. It means like in any given market, in any given segment, people are going to be at a certain level of like, there's like a level of like saturation, right, of that industry, and how savvy these people are to marketing messages. You know, like a lot of people who work in digital marketing, they see so many flipping marketing tools and ads and things every day. They're pretty savvy, right? So actually, and here's a really interesting thing, like things like countdown timers and all of these things people use that they think are smart marketing tactics, marketers are actually repelled by them because they know it's a game. You'd probably convert them higher if you didn't use them, because they just want authenticity. So it is important to understand, like, who are your audience and what level of sophistication are they at? Because if you take the piss, you're going to turn them away. So I think to your point of like these people who are already in tech or in that space, like they know the game a lot of the time. So you can't kind of take liberties there.
Yeah, totally. Knowing your customer really well and addressing their pain points, but also I think what you're highlighting there is like, rather than just focusing on the product and like how to sell the product, remembering the things that also deter those people, right? Like if I was selling to, I don't know, like older senior woman, I'm not going to try and use edgy copy because that like would freak them out, right? It's like, but if I'm selling to, you know, under 30-year-old stock traders who are males who like are on Discord a lot, it's like, that's a certain type of person. They talk a certain way, they like interact with each other a certain way, and they probably hate countdown timers because they know they'll just come back tomorrow and the countdown timer starts again. Like, everyone knows that who's on the internet a little bit. So
true.
knowing your customer, it's it's so important. And I think that's important to say on the scope of these digital reviews. And that's why we keep highlighting where the customer's at in that journey, and also like what questions are they asking, because we're limited in our scope as far as what we know about these. But this is just based on, you know, Tom's many years of experience and my bit there.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So we'll wrap up there. We spent a lot of time on that Flamingo website, so I'll try and tag you guys in this video as well, so you can check this out. And for anyone watching this, if you're watching live, or you're watching this back on the replay, if you do want us to cover your site on the next one live, and you want to get some free publicity, drop your website URL in the comments below, and we'll do our best to cover it on the next one. Or if you would rather remain anonymous and you don't want to be covered live, but you do want us to audit your website, you can head over to roastmywebsite.co. And you can request a free website review on there. And if your business qualifies, one of our team will send you over like a 10 to 15 minute video audit of your website, showing you how you can increase your traffic, leads, and sales for your business. So thank you guys all for tuning in. It's been fun. Glad to be back doing this, and we'll see you again in the next one.
Ciao, ciao.